various corporations, whether federal or state, are attempting or seem to be attempting to align themselves with the provisions of the Moroccan American Constitution 1791. Now, let me just explain why I call it Moroccan American, because if you have ever done the etymology or saw and or heard of doula, do the etymological breakdown of American, you will know that American is a derivative of Moroccan. So it's really the Moroccan Constitution of 1791, but I add American because, you know, you might have some people who, oh, what you mean we Moroccan Americans? I thought we was Americans. Well, guess what? Do your studies and you will find out that Moroccan and American are synonymous. So the agency of the United States of America, the Bureau of Investigation, in 2014 and recently stated that the Southern Poverty Law Firm is no longer a resource. Who knew? I mean, these are the people that have been slandering Moors because they're choosing to stand on their nationality and national principles. All right, I'm going to read the article, but I just want to finish this because who knew? I didn't. And then also a union state affirming that they would be getting rid of the motor vehicle tax because it is unconstitutional. Are they trying to come clean? Yes, a union state affirming that they would get rid of the motor vehicle tax because it is unconstitutional. Are they trying to come clean? Now, what I couldn't fit in there also is, at least on the blog, I couldn't fit it in. Hold on. You may recall, or you may not recall, but I'm going to bring it to your mind. Some time ago, Georgia Union State Corporation, their legislatures or legislative people drafted a bill to eliminate the entire forced motor vehicle registration program. And the arguments that was going on was most interesting. I want to say arguments were either in the bill itself or it was commentary by a newspaper. I've been trying to find that, and that's probably why I was so delayed in getting everything uploaded so that people would have the syllabus for today's broadcast. And since Roz was traveling, I couldn't harass her to look because I know we talked about this back before we even started this broadcast, this MHHS Eyes Wide Open. We started doing this, I want to say, in 2013. So this had to have happened prior to 2013 because it was brought out and we discussed it on another platform. But I thought it was real interesting that here we are in 2017 and we have yet another union state talking about getting rid of the motor vehicle taxes because it's unconstitutional. Now, what they're really trying to say is something else. Before we get into that, I've got to read this editorial. This is from 2014 Washington Times. You can Google it and find it. It's entitled Editorial, The FBI Dumps a Hate Group. And then underneath it says the Southern Poverty Law Center is no longer, quote, a resource, end quote. Now this says analysis and opinion, and this is of the editor of the Washington Times, but there's some truth in here, and there's some quotes directly from the employees of the Bureau of Investigation. So I want to read it because I got to read it because these people, I don't call them the Southern Poverty Law Firm, I call them the poverty people because that's who they are, the poverty people, with no nationality and no national ties, throwing dirt and slanderous accusations at Moors. Who knew in 2014 that the Bureau of Investigation put them on blast? I didn't know, so I'm thinking everybody else might want to know too. So let me read a little bit of it. It's not long. So something called the Southern Poverty Law Center sounds like a harmless do-good organization of idealistic young lawyers out to make life better for poor folks in the South. Most of them likely black. Who wouldn't want to make life better for poor folks? But looks can be deceiving. The Poverty Law Center, known by its initials SPLC, is actually a money-making scheme. Some have called it a scam of an Alabama lawyer who set out years ago to get rich on the backs of the poor and the duped. The lawyer, Moorish once defended Ku Klux Klansmen accused of beating up a black reporter, covering the Freedom Riders, later raised money for George Wallace and then for George McGovern, and one day had an epiphany, or at least a profitable idea. Quote, I felt the anger of a black person for the first time, end quote. He later said of that case, I vowed then and there that nobody would ever again doubt where I stood. Where he stood was a place where he could parlay the goodwill of the unsuspecting into great riches. Mr. Deeds and a partner, Millard Fuller, practiced law and ran a direct marketing business. He made a good living, but he wanted to get rich. Quote, Morris and I shared the overriding purpose of making a pile of money, end quote. The partner once told Harper's Magazine, quote, we were not particular about how we did it. We just wanted to be independently rich, end quote. With his conscience in tatters, Millard Fuller sold his share of the business to Mr. Deeds, gave the proceeds to charity, moved away, and founded Habitat for Humanity, building houses for the poor. Morris Deeds stayed in Alabama and built a 200-acre estate with tennis courts, a swimming pool, and stables for his horses, and instead of doing good, did well. Poverty quickly became enormously profitable. He was soon collecting millions and paying himself a salary far in excess of those paid to the heads of such advocacy groups as the ACLU, the Children's Defense Fund, and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. The director of the Atlanta-based Southern Center for Human Rights, which defends poor defendants in death penalty cases, once told Mr. Deeds he was, quote, a fraud and a con man, end quote, because of, quote, your failure to respond to the most desperate needs of the poor and powerless, despite your millions upon millions, your fundraising techniques, and the fact that you spend so much, accomplish so little, and promote yourself so shamelessly, end quote. Mr. Deeds and his center, quote, center, continue to slander the innocent and raise money from the unsuspecting, warning in fundraising appeals of a firestorm of hate that would soon engulf the land. The Southern Poverty Law Center never identified the hate groups about to engulf the land, who they are, or where they are assembling their regiments of engulfers. With the Ku Klux Klan shrinking to insignificance, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is thought to be sitting on a treasury of $250 million, has lately turned its lurid appeals to prosperous but frightened gays. Hate crimes by Southern Poverty Law Center definition now include Christian opposition to same-sex marriage. This week, it emerged that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which has included Southern Poverty Law Center data as a resource, has finally severed its link with the organization and duped Southern Poverty Law Center, dumped Southern Poverty Law Center from the Bureau's hate crime webpage, who alleged to have compiled a whole dossier on the Moors and how they operate, and they were also going to various, guess who, municipal corporations, and teaching them how to identify who's a Moor, but they weren't classifying them as Moors. They were classifying them as sovereign citizens. And in particular, they teamed up with two guys who I believe are former employees of a municipal corporation somewhere down there in North Carolina, Finch and Flowers, who put disparaging reports about the Moors in the public arena. So it's interesting to know that Finch and Flowers, who alleged to gather all of their information about the Moors from the Southern Poverty Law Center,
that the FBI
and then went across the nation. Sorry?
You said that they gathered their information from the Southern Poverty Law Center report that they're now saying is not credible or viable.
Well, that's not what I was. No. I was going into because see, a lot of people, they get confused. They think that the municipal corporation is the state. They're not. Rod Class, after much work from Moors, was credited with receiving the information from North Carolina, and they have it on record. It's on, I believe it's on the RB Bay Publications website, where the North Carolina state affirmed that the municipal corporation is not an agency of the state. They're a private contractor. All right, so people look, in law, one of the first principles is you must identify the proper party. So it's never the state or even the feds that's coming after you. It's always employees of various municipal corporations. So it's interesting that Finch and Flowers, former employees of a municipal corporation that was subsequently fired, then joins up with the Southern Poverty Law Firm, a hate group, to go across the nation and teach other employees of other municipal corporations how to deal with Moors, branded sovereign citizens. So now you got the Federal Bureau of Investigation on record as stating the Southern Poverty Law Center is no longer a resource. In fact, they're a hate group and they're swindlers. Now, what to me is significant is that how many municipal corporations across the nation employ the Southern Poverty Law Firm to attack a certain group of people, and in this case, the Moor, the Aboriginal indigenous people of this land? That right there is a great connector, because it's letting you know that the employees of the municipal corporation are also engaging in what? Hate crimes. Absolutely unconstitutional. So that's a great piece of information, in my opinion.
timeline of when they put this thing out, this also puts to rest all the quote unquote active Moor haters that were using SPLC as a reference point to prove that what we're doing isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, it wasn't only don't forget, it wasn't only SPLC that was talking crazy.
I know that's right.
Dark-skinned people who are Moors as well, unconscious of their birthright, that were using SPLC as a template to say, look, see, the quote-unquotes have the Moors under whatever. The quote-unquotes have the Moors in this document saying that they go around and they do this and that. So once again,
right.
It's being presented on behalf of the Moors who the frauds are by people who are on the other side. It's no different than we brought up with the proclamations. People are going to talk BS about Moors, but I don't see any of these proclamations from any of these municipal Roman mayors talking about Moors as sovereign citizens.
Yep.
You know,
It
doesn't come up.
All you got to do is go on everyday publications and you'll see that.
Right? So, like you're saying, yes, it's a great document, but remember that the de facto operations are already shut down. They're on life support. So you don't really need to give them too much of your attention. You can put the focus now on clearing up the confusion that our people accepted from these people. But now there's documentation from 2014 that we can say, hold on a second, oh, you say more sovereign citizens? Hold on a second. Who created that stuff right here? FBI says that they're a fraud. So
yeah,
just like all their concepts, they're going down with their concepts. Especially the things that they came together and put together and compiled and whatever to try to make Moors look like, some clown. And again, if people are going to say, like Moor's been saying that, no, that's not true, you can't say that about Moors and whatever. Okay, well, FBI is coming out now and saying the same thing.
What
FBI is coming out now. No, not now, but they came out in 2014 and said the exact same thing. You know what I mean?
Now, I'm not sure if people have ever, done the research and looked at, one or two of the FBI reports. All right, I was talking with this Moor, I want to say last week, and he made a very interesting point. Many people, Moors, look, I want to say this, but I really don't want you to act on it because you need to really reflect on this. If you comprehend that your nationality is based on the blood flowing in your veins, which comes from your mother, the fact that you stand up and say you are a Moor is not open for discussion. It is not. You don't need anybody to recognize you. You don't need nobody to acknowledge you or your paperwork because it is based on the blood flowing in your veins. That means it's a no-brainer. So when somebody says, I'm not going to recognize you're a Moor, they just said, well, I'm just stupid. I'm stupid. That's really what they're saying because you're saying that you're not going to recognize the blood flowing through my veins. How? Okay. So let's move forward because it is what it is. But the flip side of that is this is what you need. That's the bloodline is what you need to stand on. You ain't got to defend it. Nobody has to come and say, okay, I acknowledge it. Who the hell cares? But there is FBI documentation that already affirms that. And it's always many people know that the FBI heavily investigated Noble Ali, Moorish Science Temple, the Moorish Holy Temple, the Moorish Science Temple of America, heavily investigated. The 101 is in the FBI report. Okay? The Quran is in the FBI report. And you can submit a Freedom of Information request and get those reports. Of course, a lot of it is going to be blacked out, but guess what it affirms? We know your bloodline. I mean, not that you need it, but it affirms. We know your bloodline from a federal level. And you know what? Most of the people running around having any kind of negative interactions, you're having it not with feds or states, but corporate employees, contractors, private contractors, as affirmed by North Carolina, documented, put a stamp on that baby, documented. These people are irrelevant. But they're only irrelevant as much as you make them irrelevant by studying and knowing how these people ain't even a part of the union. They're not a part of the Fed. Well, shoot, they're like Toyota, foreign, on American land, Moroccan American, at that. And you having a debate with some foreigners who originally, their lineal descendants originally came over here as slaves. You're having a debate with them about bloodline? Really? I mean, I'm just saying. They can't even comprehend that type of a conversation because they don't have a bloodline. But if you stand on the bloodline of your mother, everything says that the Moorish nation is a matriarchal nation. That means that the bloodline comes from your mother. You stand on that blood, and believe you me, baby, it will kick butt. But if you slide over to that commercial side thinking that you're a corporation, you're going to sink into the quicksand very fast. And there'll be no hope for you. We can try and throw you a lifeline, but if you're so hell-bent on being a commercial property, you ain't going to be able to catch that lifeline. So, bloodline is where it's at, baby. You better, and that's why the prophet said, if you don't do nothing, declare your nationality. Do you know people have translated declare your nationality to nationalize, declare your nationality, I want to be a national, I want to join the membership of RV Bay Publications, or I want to become a member of the Moorish Science Temple. Look, declare your nationality. This is why he said study, 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 because you got to study, you got to look up words, you got to do the etymology. What does he mean, declare? He said, be clear of your lineal descent bloodline, because if you're not clear, I can't help you.